How is it that every single one of us were taught the same thing? We were all taught this, that if you're broke, it's your fault. That if you're struggling, you're the one that messed up. That your personal financial situation is your fault. If you don't have savings, you must have made bad choices. We were all taught that. Put a 1 in the chat. Put a me in the chat if that is you. If you're broke, we were all taught. If you're broke, it's your fault. If you're struggling, you messed up. And if you don't have savings, you made bad choices. Thank you, Brenda. Because, man, that is such a lie that they tell us. We're putting 1s in the chat. Put a me in the chat. Because if it's just personal choices, why are so many people in the same boat, right? Why do most working people not have any savings? Now, are we really saying that millions of people all made the same mistake? Is that really what the story is that we're going with? Or is something bigger going on? Thank you, Daryl. We know something bigger's going on. Just think about it, right? Millions of people used to be able to have savings. The previous generation could work 40 hours a week and afford a house without being stressed. That's not the case anymore. There was a guy in here on Tuesday. He worked a 14-hour shift. Maybe it was a 13-hour shift on Tuesday. And Shelly, we're talking about what's going on. So he worked a 13-hour shift on Tuesday. Then the boss made him open up at 7 a.m. the next day, right? That's what this is. Boss told him to open up. And here's what it comes down to. I asked him, if you had 6 months of savings, would you have said yes to that? If you had 6 months of savings, would you have said yes to that? And he was like, hell no. Hell no. So he didn't say yes because he wanted to. He said yes because he couldn't afford to say no. If you felt that, put a me in the chat, drop a 1s in the chat, y'all. Because we're all stuck. That's the problem. Put a stuck in the chat if you feel that. Because goddamn, if missing 1 paycheck ruins you, do you really have freedom? If you can't even take a week off at the risk of upsetting your boss, are you free? Really? If you walk into the grocery store, but you can only afford 10% of what is there, is that really freedom of choice? I don't think so. Or are you just struggling to survive? And if you're struggling, if you're fighting for survival, you'll never fight for change. That's our whole freaking system. Zoom out, right? We are the most productive generation in human history. We have the internet. We have automated machines. We have new technology. If you think about it, we are literally making more money, making more resources and wealth than any other generation in human history. But we're still stressed about rent. We don't know where our food is coming from always. That's why we say yes to the boss. Because if we had savings, if we had security, we wouldn't be stuck all the time. So we produce more than ever. So why are people still stressed about rent, right? No, it's not illegal immigrants. You are right, Telis. Why are still people stressed about groceries? Why are people stressed about healthcare? You are one of the most productive people in human history. But we're all less stable. It doesn't make any sense. And the reason it doesn't make any sense is they don't even give us time to think about it, right? So here's what it is. If we produce more, but we feel less stable, something is off. That's what's crazy. We all know that the previous generation were able to work 40 hours a week and afford what they needed to live, their food, their housing, their healthcare, right? But we are actually producing way more than them because we have technology, we've got the internet, we've got new machines. So instead of pointing around and trying to find the problem, we end up fighting each other. Because here's the shift. Here's what has to happen. We're not trying to overthrow anything, right? That's not going to be the way that this happens. We're trying to depend less on corporations. That's what this is about. Because we're basically in a corporate system. We're in a corporate system designed by corporations. And we're completely dependent on corporations. So we're dependent on corporation for our food, for our housing, for our healthcare. The corporations set this system up so that we have no other options other than corporate options. And that's how they got so rich, right? Because if you completely depend on somebody, you can't tell them no, right? If the person that controls all of your food asks you to do something, you'll probably say yes. If you try to fight the person who has all your food, they'll cut you off. And the problem is you can't just stop spending. That's what they make us think. Oh, if everybody just made better personal choices, but the corporate system makes it so that you have to use the corporate system. The majority of people have to get their food from corporate grocery stores, not because they want to, but because we don't have enough time in the day to drive 30 minutes out of the way, to go 30 minutes out of the way and pay 30% more. We don't have enough money. We don't have enough time. I had somebody say, oh, well, I quit Amazon. And I go, if you use the internet, you didn't quit Amazon, because Amazon Web Services is everywhere. Everywhere. Until you realize the corporations have it set up so that you cannot choose non-corporate options. Then you'll be like, oh. And plus, we pay all of our health insurance to corporations. Your housing payment, whether it's a rent or a mortgage, for the majority of people, that goes to a corporation. Your electricity, corporation. Your water, corporation. Your car payment, corporation. Your bank account, corporation. Everything in your internet, corporation. Your phone, corporation. So no, it will not happen from just us being like, oh, well, stop spending money with corporations. You can't stop spending money with corporations, because if they are the only ones who make medicine, who control all the medicine, and you try to fight them to build a better system, well, guess what? They're going to restrict your access to medicine. If somebody controls all the housing and that person is the one that set up our entire system, if you try to fight that person, they're going to kick you out of your house, right? So maybe the smart move is, before we try to fight back against the people that control our food and our housing and our healthcare, let's take back control of some of that first. That's all that we're saying. No matter what it is we try to do, no matter what action we try to take, if somebody else controls our food and all they have to do is cut off our food supply, do we really have any power? So if you're just hopping in, this is all that we're connecting. If you can't say no, you're not free. If you don't have like 3 months of savings in your bank account, you are not free. Corporations make sure to keep you from having 3 months of savings, because if you had 3 months of savings, you'd be much more comfortable saying no. And when you say no, you actually have power. That's so true, Doodle. So true. So savings lets you say no, right? Savings is what gives us power. To my Bugs Life reference, the ants didn't realize they had power when they saw, oh, it's 100 to 1. Nope, not at all. The ants realized they had power over the grasshoppers when they were like, oh shit, the grasshoppers need us to get their food. So the grasshoppers act so mean and intimidating and dominating because they understand that if we ever sniffed the actual power that we have, that the grasshoppers would be listening to us. That's the problem. Power is what changes politics. And because most of us don't have savings, right? Most of us don't have savings. We try to protest on a Saturday and we go back home on Monday. T. Prada, that's a big part of what we are doing. Why is it that we don't have savings, right? If you walk into Walmart and half the registers are closed, it's understaffed, the staff literally runs away from you. But why do they set it up like that? Because they know you have nowhere else to go. Imagine if we are allowed to have farmers markets in every single Walmart parking lot. That's what I'm talking about. Imagine that there's a general store across the street, right? You walk out of Walmart and go to the local general store. What happens then? Suddenly, Walmart starts paying attention. Hey, we lost 30 people last week that were going to buy from us, but they walked over to the other local store. Competition matters. When competition is gone, we don't have any options. And when corporations know we don't have any options, they treat us like numbers instead of people. Who here feels like you're being treated like a number? Put a 1 in the chat. Put a 1 in the chat. We're not customers. What do you think matters more? What makes you feel more power? Your vote? Do you feel powerful when you go to vote? Or do you feel powerful when you've got a lot of money in your bank account? Which is actual power? Because none of us feel like our vote is power. But damn, if you had 500 grand in your bank account, I bet you'll feel like you have got some power then. Why do you feel like you've got power if you've got 500 grand? Because you have the power to say no. See how we are understanding? Our economic situation affects our political one, right? Our economic situation affects our political one. Here's what it is. If you can't say no, if you don't have enough savings to say no, you're not free. I told a story earlier of a guy in here. I consider him a friend. He comes in a couple times a week. On Tuesday, he worked a 13-hour shift. And then on Wednesday, the boss asked him to open. And I told him, hey, if you had 6 months of savings in your bank account, would you have said yes to the boss? And he was like, hell no, right? Hell no. Because I would have felt secure that I wasn't depending on him, that I wasn't afraid of pissing the boss off, right? So millions of people just have to accept it because we don't have enough savings to say no. The system is set up that way. But then when people don't have enough savings, rather than us being like, oh shit, the system is making sure we don't have savings, so that way we don't have any power to say no. Or even to say yes, because if you can't afford the majority of stuff in a grocery store, if you don't have freedom of choice, are you even free? And you need to have money to have freedom of choice. So are we citizens or are we customers, right? So Alexandria, that's what we're talking about though. Power isn't just your vote. Not at all. Power is who controls the food supply. We could vote in every single Democrat, or every single person that you want. But wages aren't going up because wages go up with competition. So even if you vote, it's not bringing back local general stores. It's not bringing back local grocery stores. It's not bringing back local banks, local pharmacies, local newspapers. And those are the things that provide people with savings. And so, yes, your vote matters, but so does your financial situation. If you have no money, you do not have freedom of choice. So if you have no money, you don't have freedom. So if you literally don't have freedom because you don't have money, then why does your vote matter? Especially your vote doesn't matter in a system where corporations control politicians. For so long, and even now, we're still stuck in believing that power is in the halls of Congress. That is not where power lies. Politicians are middle managers for corporations. Politicians work for people who pay their campaign financing. Do you not think that's the truth? We are powerless until we control our food supply. That's it. Because we could get 100 million people protesting. But on Monday, we're all going to go back and buy our food from the same corporate system we're protesting against, right? We're not encouraging people to quit. Be efficient. Voting obviously matters, but voting on its own, that doesn't matter. Just like protesting on its own, that doesn't matter. What if every single protest had the goal of making the next one bigger? What if every single strike also built the systems to make the next strike last indefinitely? Until we understand that our political power comes from our economic situation, the two are one and the same. You can't say that the majority of Americans don't have any savings, or you can't look at the statistics that the majority of Americans don't have any savings, that Citizens United has completely captured the political sphere and say, oh, if we just vote harder, we'll get out of this. Not at all. It's one part of it, but voting on its own won't change the fact that we're dependent on the corporate system that we're trying to change. Voting is like trying to bite the hand that feeds you and then getting confused when nothing changes, right? There you go, Alexandria. That's what it is. They do fear unions. Unions don't have anything to do with your voting, though. You are talking about economic power by unions. Unions are economic power, and you're speaking in political power. That's the problem, right? So we're not saying that voting isn't useless or that you're not free, but it's only when you have money that you actually have freedom of choice, that you actually have options, right? Options is what gives us power. Power is what changes politics. That's the whole idea. Right now, people think that if we put in legislation, that'll change everyone's behaviors. That's not the way it works. Behavior changes first, then politics follow. That's how it always happens. They didn't create something for Uber, create legislation for Uber, and then suddenly Uber started. No, Uber changed people's behavior, and then they had the policy to match it. Anyway, it's about three things. It's about forming small groups. It's about protesting. And yes, it is about applying pressure on the system through voting. But how do we fix it? It's not just by yelling louder. It's not just by voting. It's by building options. We need to control our food supply, or at least 10% of it, 20% of it. So then when the corporations start acting out of our interest, we are able to change it. So Swamp Nails, I'm going through it right now. It's by building options. So we are creating and encouraging for the upcoming protests for people to hold local meetings, right? So Julie, that is great. We love it when people change their personal options. But you changing your choices and me changing my choices, and even if we had 1 million people change their choices, it wouldn't matter, unfortunately. Because as most of us realize that if we try to do anything alone against the corporations, it doesn't matter. We have to come together. We have to link up. Because, yeah, it really matters that we're not spending money. It does. But we need to take it one step further. Because if they're the only place we can get energy from, if they're the only place we can get the internet from, if they're the only place we can get our gasoline and our cars from, then it doesn't matter how much we don't want to spend. We still are using their system. Here's why we have to build it, right? We have to build it. When alternatives become visible, right? When alternatives become visible. So this is the problem, Alexandria. You think you're helping. You are not helping. In fact, you are hurting. It is not just a political problem. You've got to understand that when there is no local competition, we can't walk out of the corporate store. We can't choose to go to a non-corporate option because we don't have choices. That gives them all the power, and that gives them, and because they have power, they can make money. In the 80s, 70s, they consolidated all the money, gave it to lobbyists, and the lobbyists rewrote the rules. That culminated in what's called Citizens United, where corporations can now spend unlimited money on politicians. Politicians care about the people that pay their campaign funds. They really don't care about the people. They want to keep their job. They want to keep those privileges. So they only care about who is financing their campaign. So why is it if you choose this politician that's getting paid by mega corporation or this politician that's getting paid by mega corporation? Why would that matter? What we're saying is, if both politicians are paid for by mega corporation, then there's not much we can do, because they can tell us whatever they want, but they will always vote for the corporate interests. Have we not seen that over the last decades? Chat, put a 1 in the chat if we have seen politicians follow corporate interests. Since when have politicians done something for the people of America? My God. So why would voting in new politicians fix this? That's what I'm not understanding. Obviously, we want 535 new representatives, right? But even if we got 535 new representatives, if Monsanto still controls all the seeds, we're still stuck. If Walmart is the only general store we have to go to, we're still stuck because all of our money will go back to the corporations. And yeah, it might not be for 4 or 5 years, but they will go ahead and roll back the progressive legislation that we put in. And nothing will change long term. Because why do people not understand? Power is who controls the nation's food supply. The nation's food supply is not controlled by Congress. Congress looks at corporations and are like, oh, we're afraid of you, corporations. What I always think about, we could vote in every new politician and say those politicians put in legislation. Well, if the pharmaceutical companies can be like, oh, anybody protesting, anybody that's acting up, you don't get any medicine, right? That's what it is. So we can fix this. We really can. We just have to stay connected. We use these upcoming protests as a way to form local groups. That's all we need to do. Because why are protests just about screaming and yelling? If you are sick of just screaming and yelling and nothing ever changing, that's what we are fixing. Our whole goal, we are sending out a civic force, a group of people that are saying, hey, Let's meet next week. I'm holding a meeting. You're here at the Women's March. You're here at No Kings. I'm holding a meeting next week to stay connected, to keep people in this area, to not let this energy disappear. So what if all of No Kings had the goal of making the next protest even bigger? What if every single boycott also built the new systems to make the next boycott last forever? That's what we should be doing. We're going out, we're gaining this momentum, we're building energy, and then we're letting it dissipate. We can't let the energy fade. We have, and how do we do that? 5 steps. You form small groups. That's it. Form a local group. How do I form a local group? You just hold a meeting like once every 2 weeks, once a month. Hey, y'all, if you came to No Kings, you know something is wrong. We are going to stay connected to keep taking action. That's it. If you're here, you know something's wrong. Let's stay connected and keep taking action. That's what we're building. This is a civic force. 1 million individuals and 1,000 movements that all know this is the moment. Because if we even get 100 million people to protest, but then on Monday, we go right back to their grocery stores and their general stores, nothing changes, right? We need to understand what actual power is. Power is control over the essentials. What are the essentials? Food, housing, healthcare. And if you have to go shop at Walmart for your food, if you have to pay a specific health insurance company for your health insurance, then you can't say no. That's where it's so crazy when people are like, well, just stop shopping at corporations. For most of the things, they've made it so we can't not shop at corporations. Go get your insulin from a non-corporation, right? Go get your milk from a non-corporation. Go get your car from a non-corporation, right? Oh, Tiago, that could not be more wrong. What's actually possible, what's actually funny about what you're saying is all we're saying is America used to have a non-corporate system. It's just that people born after 1950, right? People born after 1950 have only been a part of this corporate system. Humber, we're calling for a 30-day general strike. So the goal isn't us to just go fight and push back and have chaos. It's to just build independence by forming small local groups. Those small local groups start detaching from corporations. It's not going to happen right away. But for grocery stores, rather than depending on grocery stores, we start calling up the local farmer. And what if we had 50 people, 60 people, 100 people with us? We're basically just placing a bulk order. So we go to the farmer, we say, hey, we have 100 people that want to buy from you every single week. The farmer's over the moon. They're so sick of corporations. They're so sick of selling all their crap to corporations. And that's why we are building options. We're not just venting. We're not just voting, because doing those on its own has gotten us to this situation. We're building a community hub, 1 million individuals, 1,000 groups that are all sick of corporations. That's what brings us together, recognizing corporations don't have your best interests at heart. But corporations control all your food, Missy. Corporations definitely don't care about you or your family. To them, you're just a number. But corporations control all your health care, right? Tiago, stop being so scared. This is the problem. You're weak. People are so afraid, right? Why are we afraid of corporations? They depend on us. Do you know that a corporation doesn't exist without people? Either people to work there or people to buy from them. And we are the people. It's just because this whole thing has been telling us that corporations are more important than communities, that doesn't make it real. Because as far as I see it, corporations don't grow our food. A freaking farmer does. And he's one of us. Corporations don't provide our health care. Doctors and healthcare providers do, and they're one of us. Right? We can go right to the source. Politicians are just middlemen, right? Politicians are just middlemen. Sorry, corporations are just middlemen. So we've got to fix it. When did survival become optional? That's what's insane. Because why did full-time work stop meaning stability? Because full-time work stopped meaning stability when they understood that, oh, if we keep them without having savings, they won't have any options and they'll have to do whatever we say. Oh, shit. And if we get rid of all the local grocery stores and there's only 3 corporate grocery stores in every town, they won't even have a choice of where they spend their money. Holy cow. If we can make it so that people don't have any choice where they spend their money, then we'll get super rich and we'll have all the power, right? They'll have all the power. We're not here to convince you of this. Just think about it. Why are you still working full time and still falling farther behind? The only reason that they have made what I am saying controversial, that food and housing and healthcare should be affordable if you work 40 hours a week, is so that we can keep pinning people's financial situation on them. Because that's the question. Either millions of people suddenly got lazy. Either millions of people suddenly forgot how to budget. So now they don't have enough money. And rather than being like, dang, how is it that this all happened to millions of people at once? We don't ask that. We just go, oh, you must have made a wrong decision. You must have made a bad choice. But the system is only there to serve corporations. You know what serves corporations? A bunch of workers that can't say no, right? Because here's where it gets really weird. We fight about politics nonstop. We fight all the time, but nothing changes. We protest, we vote, we speak out. Everything's the same. Because if you're broke and exhausted, the people in charge know you're not actually going to be able to organize and push back. If you're fighting just to survive, you will never fight for change. What's more important? This is what's so funny. What is more important, your vote or your bank account? What makes you feel more powerful? If you could vote or if you had 500 grand in your bank account, which would make you feel better? I think it'd be the money, right? Because the voting is just one little thing. The money, you feel secure. You feel better. Missy, I hear you. I don't necessarily agree with it because I think voting is one part of what we can be doing. But I hear you. Voting on its own right now will not change anything. We need to also understand we're not voting politicians. Corporations are in charge. They want us thinking that all we need to do is replace the politicians. Oh, if we just get James Tallarico in there, everything will be fixed. We'll have new legislation, and that legislation will change the corporation's behaviors. That's not the way it works. The corporations, that's hilarious, Swamp. The corporations are the ones that control everything. They want you to believe that, oh, if I just vote for that guy, things will change. Because that's only one half of the equation. They know that as long as we don't have any savings, as long as we don't have control over the essentials, we don't have any power. Here's how I can test that. If 100 million people protested tomorrow, we'd still have to go buy groceries from the corporations the next day. Nothing changes. So what is power? Is power changing your politician when nothing actually changes in your life? Is power yelling and protesting when after you yell and protest, nothing actually changes in your life? Or is power controlling the food supply? Is power controlling the electricity for a nation? Is power controlling everyone's medicine? Do corporations actually control those things? No. They just buy up all the food from the local farmer, then charge you whatever the heck they want. Because what are you going to do? Not buy food? Right? Who grows the food? You and I do. Who drives the trucks? We do. We are the one who builds the houses, works in the healthcare, staffs the warehouses. But it's the corporations that get the power, not because they're the ones doing the work, because they set up the system so that they always come out on top. They don't actually feed us. They charge us for the money that we grow. They don't actually build our houses. They rent our hard work from us. And they definitely don't make us better through healthcare. They deny and depose us, right? Type damn if that hits, because what the F? That is what is happening. They produce nothing. They are the goddamn grasshoppers in a bug's life. But look, the ants didn't recognize that they had the power just because they were 100 to 1. The ants recognized they had the power when they realized the grasshoppers needed them to get their food, right? And so the number one power we have, the number one power the system has, is us keeping quiet, right? It's thinking that it's your fault, that it's just you, that you're the only one falling behind. But that's just not the case, right? Either millions of people all at once became lazy and forgot how to budget, or the system changed. But every one of us were taught that if you're broke, it's on you, pal. If you're struggling, you messed up. If you don't have savings, you made bad choices. That's a lie. Because when millions of people, then why, if it's just personal choices, then why are so many people in the same spot? If it's just personal choices, why are millions of people in the exact same situation? Because I promise you, millions of people didn't get lazy all at once. Something bigger is going on. And if you want to be a part of fixing it, join the Community Hub. Our Discord is broken out by state. We have a meeting in 90 minutes. We meet every week. We are actually building the systems. We're forming small groups. We're figuring out, all right, what non-corporate options do we actually have in our town, in our area, in our locality? And if there's not non-corporate options, we're stepping up and we're building them. We're calling the farmers in our area. We're saying we're sick of shopping at the Dollar General for all of our food. We want to buy our food from you. And the farmer goes, I'm sick of selling all my food to the corporations. I want to sell my food to you. Better person, appreciate you. P1, thank you. We are building a community hub. We break out by state. We form local groups. We are working with hundreds of other groups that are pushing to get people active, If you want to apply pressure and go meet your representative, we've got groups of people going to do that. If you want to fight for impeachment, if you want to apply pressure, we've got thousands of people that are in the same boat. If you want to build community and create the systems that will actually sustain the next protest, we've got that as well. Join the Discord. The link is in the bio. Moylan, we are doing something. This is 1 million individuals, 1,000 groups that recognize we're not just fighting against politicians. Politicians and corporations have teamed up to make sure we don't have any leverage. Leverage is savings. If you have 6 months of savings, you can say no to things. If you don't have 6 months of savings, you're pretty much stuck. You have to buy the food that's the lowest prices. That's at the corporation. You have to get the lowest price health insurance. That's at the corporation. You have to get the lowest price everything, and that's at the corporation. Not only that, if you don't have any money, you can't do the two strongest things politically. We had somebody in here going, oh, we need to vote. Oh, we need to vote. Oh, we need to vote. What happens when your vote doesn't work? You've got two things to do. You protest. What happens when protesting doesn't work? You strike. And if you don't have savings, you can't strike. So people aren't asking questions. It's obvious our vote hasn't mattered in 30 years. So how do we make our vote matter? Well, we make the politicians listen. Okay, we tried protesting. Politicians don't care about us. Politicians only care about the people financing their campaign. That is the corporations. So we need to learn, how do we stick it to the corporations? How do we make sure that they feel our power? Well, we strike and we boycott. So corporations made sure that we didn't have enough savings to strike. Corporations made sure that there weren't enough options to boycott. What if every protest had the goal of building non-corporate options so the next boycott could last indefinitely? What if No Kings Coming Up also had the goal of building systems so that the next strike lasted forever? Because that's power. Being able to simply walk away. And until we can be like, nah, this system sucks, we're just going to go do our own thing, we have no power. Voting on its own does not have power until we have the ability to say no. Until we say, damn, I just voted 5 times and it didn't matter worth shit. I'm not dealing with this system anymore. We're actually building our own thing where it takes care of our communities. You want me to keep participating in this system that works against me when there's a system right over there that works for me instead of against me? That's all it is. I imagine it like this. Imagine somebody who's been in a house their whole life. They're 50 years old. They were born in this house, but the house is leaky. The house is moldy. The house is falling apart. Well, if you just walked right up to them and go, get out of this shithole. It's not working. Let's go. We're doing something better. They'd probably be like, well, this is all I've ever known. This is my house. I've been here my whole life. My parents were fine in this house. This house is the American way, right? But they're not really arguing because they love that house. They're arguing because they're scared. They're arguing because they can't picture, what will this new house look like? Oh, I'm afraid. That's essentially what we're doing to people if we're saying, hey, the system's broken. We need a new system. Leave this system. Let's build a better one. Well, they're going to be like, what? They're going to hear all the horror stories that the system told them. And they're going to be like, no, I'll stay in this house. I know that it's moldy. I know that it's drafty, but this is the house I've always been in. at least this house, at least it's not doing all the bad things to me that I'm hearing from the corporate controlled media. God, that's what gets me so upset. I'm like, hey, well, this is the problem. And people are like, no, I heard it was illegal immigrants. And I'm like, but you heard it was illegal immigrants from the people who are actually causing the issues. The people that control all of your food supply are telling you that your food supply prices have gone up because of illegal immigrants. But it's the people that control your food supply that are telling you that. And that's where, if somebody's got their head buried in the sand, we just move on. So I got to get going, y'all. I'm live every single day. Shoot us a follow if you haven't yet. We are actually going to go live. We have a group meeting here in a couple minutes. So Moylan, Frisia, if you want to be a part of it, would love that. We actually meet every single Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Because it's how we stay connected, really. Oh, 90 minutes. Sorry, Merv. Said the wrong thing. Whoop. 90 minutes. 1 p.m. Eastern. So we got the 1 p.m. meeting today. Come in and join the Discord if you haven't yet. The meeting link is on the website. But most of us know something is wrong. We protest, we vote, we speak out, but nothing changes. That's because we don't have the power to make our voices heard. Yep, Moylan, 12 Central, 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 Central. Power comes from controlling the essentials. And right now, we depend on them for food and housing and healthcare. We are economically dependent on the same system. We're trying to change. So as long as we rely on the same system that we're also asking to change, the system will never change. If we want to create actual change, we need to control some of our food supply, some of our housing, and some of our healthcare. We're essentially going to the people that control our food, and we're like, hey, I don't like the way you do things. But we're not like, oh, yeah, if they control all of our food, it doesn't matter if we don't like it, right? Yes, voting is still very important, Murph. Voting is incredibly important, especially coming up. But it's like, just because we're voting for the good cop versus the bad cop doesn't mean our job is done. Because both good cop and bad cop work for the same corrupt corporate assholes. I know, Merv, that person just annoys me when it's like, it's just frustrating because to me, it's like everything is such a nuanced view. There's no black and white, it's gray. Yes, we vote, but we also build alternatives and we also protest and we also go to our local thing. And it's like, just say, no, voting alone is what's going to fix it. It's like, no. Corporations of this, right? Moylan, all he was saying was Merv's in here every day. Trust me, Merv's on top of that. It's just we don't want to discourage people from voting in the midterms when that has such a huge implication over whether Trump can push through his agenda. That's all. And I wasn't the most voter positive. No, you're right though, man. Trust me. I'm with you. I'm with you because it's hard for me to get out, to be excited about it when I'm like, oh, fucking shit, it doesn't change anything. So go join the Discord. We're already working with Flair. Flair's in the Discord. Citizens Impeachment's in the Discord. This is what's so great. This Discord is a community hub. Soon we're going to have 100 groups in there. So no matter whether you want to build community, create a local garden, push back at your local city council, try to impeach, meet your representative. We'll have everything that you can do and a place for all of us to stay connected. And that's what it's about, the community hub, staying connected. Appreciate everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Catch y'all soon. Bye.